Hello everyone and welcome back. In today's session, we will be discussing an important topic of grammar, that is direct and indirect speech. So let's begin. Right in the beginning, let us understand what is the basic difference between direct speech and indirect speech, right? So, it often happens that you need to report what you have heard somewhere. So, there are basically two ways of, there are two ways of doing that, right? Now, one is direct speech and the other one is indirect speech. So, when you exactly use the words of the speaker, that is direct speech, and when you give a gist of those words in your own words, that is indirect speech, right? So, when the exact words of the speaker are reproduced, it is called direct speech. So, in this sentence, he said, I am busy. So, I am busy. These are the exact words of the speaker. I am busy. These are the exact words that has been spoken by the speaker, right? So when we are using these exact words of the speaker, this is direct speech. And what is indirect speech? When the meaning of a speech is conveyed in the reporter's words, it is called indirect speech. So when the same thing is conveyed, when the same meaning is conveyed in the words of the reporter, right? That is indirect speech. For example, the same sentence in indirect speech, let us see. He said that he was busy, right? The meaning is the same, but these are the words of the reporter and not the speaker. So I hope all of you must have understood the basic difference between direct speech and indirect speech, right? Now let's proceed further. Now let us take a look at the structure of the sentence which is in direct speech. So as for example, my mother said, I am cooking. So this sentence is in direct speech. Now why is it in direct speech? Because the exact words of the speaker, they are mentioned in the sentence, right? So the sentence is in direct speech. Now let us take a look at this sentence. Now, in sentences in direct speech, the speaker is mentioned, right? So, who's the speaker here? Obviously, my mother is the speaker. Next comes a verb which is placed exactly before the exact words of the speaker. So, I am cooking, these are the exact words of the speaker. And which verb has been placed exactly before these words? Yes, obviously. The word said, which is a verb. So, this verb is called reporting verb, right? So, this is reporting verb. This is termed as reporting verb. Now, right after the reporting verb, we'll find a comma, right? Which separates the reporting verb and the exact words of the speaker, right? So, this comma is always placed when the sentence is in direct speech. After the comma, we find a set of double inverted commas, right? So, in these double inverted commas are placed the exact words of the speaker. And finally comes this part, that is the exact words of the speaker. What is it termed as? Yes, it is termed as reported speech. So this is the basic structure of a sentence in direct speech. So So the speaker is there, then comes the reporting verb, then a comma is placed, then comes, double inverted commas open, and then comes the reported speech. So reported speech is this is the exact words of the speaker, which is always placed within the double inverted commas. And finally, the punctuation mark, which depends obviously upon the sentence, right? So here, since it's a statement, full stop is there, and then the double inverted commas closed, right? So this is the basic structure of a sentence in direct speech. Now, one important point which should be noted is that the speaker and the reporting verb can be placed after the reported speech as well. So, in that case, the structure of the sentence would be, I am cooking, said my mother. So, the speaker and the reporting verb can be placed after the reported speech also. So, I hope this much is clear. Now, proceeding further, let us take a look at the same sentence in indirect form of narration. So, the same sentence now in indirect speech is, my mother said that she was cooking. So here in indirect speech, we have not used the exact words of the speaker as we have used it in direct speech. Here, this is the gist of the words which have been said by the speaker, right? So, what are the basic differences we find between sentences in direct speech and in indirect speech? First of all, see, we have nowhere used inverted commas in this sentence. So, no inverted commas used in indirect speech. Secondly, we will not find any comma which is separating the reporting verb from the reported speech. So, here nowhere there is a comma. Next, we find a conjunction. Now, in some sentences, we might not find this conjunction, right? So, somewhere we may find, or we might not find a conjunction in indirect speech, right? And finally, we see some changes take place in pronouns, in the tense forms, and in possessive adjectives, which we are going to discuss now further in detail. In this sentence, where do we find a change in pronoun? In the direct speech, in this sentence, I has been used, which becomes she in indirect speech. Similarly, am becomes was in indirect speech. Now, let us see all these changes in detail, right? So, first of all, let us discuss the change of tense, right? Now, as I told you that the verb which is placed exactly before the reported speech is the reporting verb, isn't it? So, when the reporting verb is in present tense, I repeat, when the reporting verb is in present tense, no changes take place when we change it into indirect speech. Now let's see this example. He says, I am tired. So here, says is the reporting verb. So when we change it into indirect speech, no changes take place in the reported speech, right? So I am tired remains there is no change here in the tense, right? It's in present tense. So it will remain in present tense only. So the reported form will be, the indirect form will be, he says that he is tired. No change will take place in tense, right? So when the reporting verb is in present tense, no change. Similarly, when the reporting verb is in future tense, again, no change of tense will take place when we change the sentence from direct speech to indirect speech. Let's again see the example. He will say. Now, will say is in future tense. So, the reporting verb is in future tense. And therefore, the tense in reported speech, which is present tense, will remain present tense only. The tense of the reported speech will not change. So the indirect speech form will be, he will say that he is ready. So I hope this much is clear to all of you. So, where will the tense related changes take place? Yes, of course. When the reporting verb is in past tense. I repeat, when the reporting verb is in past tense, in that case only, the change of tenses will take place in the indirect speech. Now let us see this through the examples. Okay. Let us first talk about simple present tense. So, if the reported speech is in simple present tense, in that case, when we change the sentence into indirect speech, the tense form will change into simple past. As for example, he said he needs a car. Now let us first take a look at the reporting verb. So the reporting verb here is said, which is past tense. So obviously the change will take place. The change related to tense will definitely take place, right? So where will it not change? When the reporting verb is in present tense or in future tense. So since the reporting verb here is in past tense, so definitely tense related changes will take place here when we change it into indirect speech, right? So he needs a car, right? He said he needs a car. So here the reported speech is in simple present tense. Now when we change the same sentence into indirect speech, we will change the tense form into simple past tense, right? So here goes the sentence. He said that he needed a... So need here becomes needed in indirect speech, right? So I hope this is clear. Now, if the reported speech, right? Again, I repeat, if the reported speech is in simple past tense, so in that case, in indirect speech, again, it will shift to further past, that is past perfect tense. As for example, he said, I wrote a letter. So here again, let us see the reporting verb. It's said, which is past tense. So definitely the tense form will change in reported speech when we change from direct form of narration to indirect form of narration. So the sentence is, he said, I wrote a letter. So here in the reported speech, the tense form is simple past. So when we change it into indirect speech, the tense form will become past perfect, right? So I wrote will become he had written, right? So the indirect speech of this sentence, this same sentence will be, he said that he had written a letter. So I hope this much is clear to. Proceeding further, we learn that if the reported speech is in past perfect tense, in that case again, there is no change when we change the sentence from direct speech to indirect speech. As for example, he said, I had written a letter. So had written is in past perfect tense. So when we change the same sentence into indirect speech, then in that case, how will we write? He said that he had written a letter. So the tense form remains the same. No change in tense form. So basically, we understand that the tense shifts to further past when we change from direct speech to indirect speech. If the reported speech is in simple present, it changes to simple past. If it is in simple past, it changes to past perfect. And if it is in past perfect, then no change is there. So I hope this much is clear to each one of you. Now let us take a quick look at these verb forms, how they change. So is, am, are, they change to was, were. Now was and were change to had been and had been. Now no change. Why no change over here with had been? Because it's already in past perfect tense. Similarly, do changes to did changes to had done, and had done no change. So we see basically the pattern, the basic pattern is we keep shifting to further past, right? So I hope this much is clear. Further, we see shall or will changes to would, can changes to could, and may changes to might, right? Now, two things that we should always keep in mind, that if the reported speech is a universal truth or a habitual action, then no changes take place, no tense related change takes place in the indirect speech. Now let us see how the pronouns and the possessive adjectives change, right? So here in this sentence, I said, I have done my work. So when we change this sentence into indirect speech, the sentence would be, I said that I had done my work. Now here, the pronoun and the possessive adjective remains unchanged. Both remain unchanged. Why? Because the speaker is first person I, right? Personal pronoun I. Fine. So there is no change in the pronoun as well as in the possessive adjective. Now let us see what happens if the speaker is second person. You said, I have done my work. So how will it be? What would be the indirect speech now? You said that you had done your work. So I changes to you and my changes to your. So we see a change in the pronoun as well as a change in the possessive adjective, right? And now if the speaker is third person, then what will happen? So he said, I have done my work. So how will it change in indirect speech? He said that he had done his work. So I changes to he and my changes to his. So I hope this is clear to all of you, and by now all of you must have understood how the changes take place in pronouns and in possessive adjectives. So let us proceed further and see how changes take place in words denoting time and position. So the word now changes to then. Here changes to there. These changes to those. This changes to that. Similarly, ago changes to before. Today becomes that day. Tonight, that night. Similarly, yesterday, the day before or the previous day. Tomorrow becomes the next day. Last night becomes the night before. Next week becomes the following week. So this is how the changes take place in words denoting position and time. So I hope all of you must have understood the topic very well, and by now all of you must have got a clear idea what is direct speech and what is indirect speech. So with this, I wind up my session. So we'll meet again in the next session with some other topic. Thank you so much.